For the International Committee of the Red Cross. She's joining us live now from Tel Aviv. Thanks so much for joining us, Patricia. Talk to us a little bit about what the hostages that have been released are doing right now. What has the Red Cross? What is your moment right now that you're doing?
First of all, the first thing I want to say is that we are extremely relieved that finally we have facilitated the release of these hostages and that the suffering of the families is coming to an end. We have been trying behind closed doors publicly to advocate for the release of hostages. The Red Cross, the ICRC, the organization I represent, has been fully committed from day one to make sure that this moment happens. As a humanitarian organization, we're finally very glad to know that these hostages will finally be able to be together and reunited with their families. Our operation has been to facilitate the release of these hostages by Hamas and bring them in our cars to the Rafah border, where we have delivered them to the Egyptian authorities. The operation has taken place with 4 cars, 8 ICRC staff members. There was 1 doctor as part of the crew as well to make sure that the hostages were in perfect health conditions to travel. And our operation has been going to the Rafah border with our cars, where we have handed over successfully the hostages to the Egyptian authorities.
Were you able to make any medical evaluation of the hostages that were released?
Our doctor has checked that the hostages were in basic health conditions to be able to carry out the trip. So this is part of the routine that we carry out when we do this kind of operations.
Do we have any? Are you able? I know that there's some privacy issues. Are you able to tell us what kind of conditions they're in? I mean, you said that they made sure that they're basic conditions, but are there any of those who are in very grave condition, or any of them perhaps very close to death? Anything of that nature?
I cannot comment on their health conditions. I don't have more information. What I can tell you is that our teams make sure that if there is any health need that these hostages have, there is a doctor as part of the crew to make sure that all these medical needs that the hostages might have, they are fully covered. So we make sure that during the trip there isn't any emergency, and that we take care from the minute 1 until we hand over the hostages. We take care of their health needs and make sure that they are in perfect conditions to undertake the journey from the point where we collect them to the point where we deliver them.
Okay, Ms. Gonzalez, if I can ask you this, what about the others?
Indeed. I want to reiterate the ICRC's call that we have done from day 1, which is we are calling for the immediate release of all hostages. We do not forget them. We know that there are still families that today are waiting to see their loved ones coming back home. We are going to we have started today a multi-day operation to release a number of hostages that was agreed upon by the parties. And this is just the beginning. We will continue in the coming days, facilitating the release of more hostages. This will not cover all of them, the ones that are still being held by Hamas. So we want to make sure that our call is heard. We call for the immediate release of all hostages. We are ready to facilitate the release of all hostages. We are ready to have access to these hostages, to bring them medicines. We are committed from day 1 as a humanitarian organization. We have undertaken these operations in several countries around the world. We know the suffering of the families. We know we can do it, and we just need the agreement by the parties to give us access and to make sure that we can fulfill our role as a humanitarian organization.
Was it part of the deal?
As you know, part of the deal was to begin a multi-day operation to release a specific number of hostages. What we can say now is that we are ready to go and visit the hostages and bring any relief that they might need, if this is what the parties agreed upon. Our role as neutral intermediary is to be on standby, ready with our cars, ready with our doctors, ready with our staff. And the moment the parties agree, we go. This has been like this from the beginning. We just need the parties to agree and to give us a final official confirmation that we can do it.
Right, but the Israeli party had, if I may, the Israeli government had allowed the Red Cross to come in and visit the Palestinian prisoners that were being held by Israel. why hasn't Hamas been allowed? Why haven't you been able to get to Hamas to get inside where the hostages are being held? It seems like a very easy thing to do.
As a humanitarian organization, we do not take part of the negotiations of the agreement. We do not make the decision of what is agreed upon, who is actually identified to be released. So we do not take part of negotiations. So I cannot comment on the different aspects of the agreement and the different parties.
Right, I understand that, but Ms. Gonzalez, if I may, I don't mean to push back but a lot in Israel believe that the ICRC has not done enough. You haven't pushed hard enough. You haven't gone there and said, listen, our job has been, since the moment we were created, is to make sure that this doesn't happen, and Hamas has been violating every single law, international law, by letting this happen. So how is it, what active action is the Red Cross actually taking? I'm sorry to be a little strict about it, but a lot of people want to know this question, this simple question.
Our president has met 3 times with the families of the hostages. I'm saying this because I want everybody to know that at the highest level of our organization, our president herself, she has personally met with Israeli authorities and with the families to express her commitment to continue pushing for the release of all hostages. Recently, our president herself has traveled to Doha to meet with the highest level authorities of Hamas to continue calling for the release of all hostages. At our level, at our highest level, this organization, my president, my colleagues here in Israel, and also our colleagues in Gaza have been giving their days, entire days, to make sure that we are ready and we are pushing for the release of the hostages. As you know, we already facilitated 2 previous releases in very, very precarious safety conditions in Gaza. Our teams, my colleagues, are risking their lives to facilitate the release of these hostages. You can rest assured that from our side, we are pushing all we can to make sure that these Israeli citizens and other nationalities, they can go back to their families.
Right, I understand that, but your president met with the highest levels of Hamas. You have people on the ground in Gaza. This is the part that I don't think we understand, is that people in Israel are wondering, there is a way for you to get there. There is a way for you to find out just if they're alive and what condition they're in. We're not asking you to negotiate their release. We're asking just to make sure there's proof of life, and that hasn't happened yet.
For us to be able to go, as we don't have any power more than our capacity to convince, we don't know where the hostages are. We cannot force ourselves into the places where the hostages are.
But you can, if I may, Ms. Gonzalez, if I may. Everyone has a phone, everyone has WhatsApp, everyone has Facebook, everyone has Instagram. So you mean to tell me that there's no way to phone and ask, hey, is that person alive? Is that person alive? I find that very hard to believe. I'm not trying to be rude with you, ma'am. I'm just trying to get answers.
Yes, so our answer is, it's extremely important that the parties to this conflict agree on the conditions for us to have access. We cannot force ourselves into the places where the hostages are. We are not the ones to go without knowing where these hostages are. It is, again, the responsibility of those who can reach these agreements to put some humanity at the center of this conflict and make sure that humanitarian organizations like mine can operate. What I can tell you is that our phones are all the time ringing. Our president is all the time traveling to make sure that we are given all the conditions necessary, the information, the coordinates, the information that we need to make sure that we can finally facilitate the reunification of these hostages with their families. Unfortunately, we cannot do more than what we are doing. Publicly, we have asked for the immediate release. We have asked for access behind closed doors. We're advocating with all those who have influence. So we are doing, I can reassure you, all we can to make sure that we facilitate the release of those hostages. And I think the operation of today is showing with our cars, our teams on the ground are showing that whenever there is an agreement, the ICRC teams are ready to go, committed from day one, and making sure that we bring some respite to the suffering that the Israeli society, the families, and the hostages are going through. You can rest assured that the ICRC will continue committed as from day one to facilitate the release of these hostages and to have access to them. We think of the remaining hostages, we will not forget them. We will continue to be there, knocking on doors, ringing phones to make sure that we have the access that everybody wants.
But if I may, Ms. Gonzalez, I'm going to ask one more time. I don't mean, forgive me. If it was the other way around and Israel said we're not letting anyone in to come take a look at the Palestinian prisoners, I'd bet you all the money I have in the bank that someone would be screaming at the ICRC, and someone at the ICRC would be screaming, how dare Israel not do that? So I don't understand how no one from the ICRC has saying, how dare Hamas not tell us where they are? How dare Hamas not tell us what their medical condition is? I just don't understand that.
Then I think you should follow our public communication. I would be delighted to share with you all the statements and all the social media posts that we have published calling for access to the hostages. If you see our communication from day one, we have asked for that. We are also in dialogue and in conversations with all the parties to the conflict, including Hamas. We're talking to Hamas and we are asking them, please.
That's it. Please, that's the part that I think Israelis don't understand. Please is not enough. It's more than we demand. The same way that ICRC demands to get into the Israeli prisons, how come ICRC has not been able to demand to go see the hostages? It's a very simple demand.
So again, in our public communication, and I quote, we've said we are asking for the immediate release of all hostages. But again, I know that there are a lot of expectations on the ICRC. We appreciate that. We have been in contact, in conversation with the families of the hostages. We received them in our office. Our head of delegation met them as well. We are directly in contact with them and seeing the suffering that they are going through. We don't have the power to force anyone to give us access.
I understand that. I fully understand you don't have the power to. But everyone expects, maybe that's the problem, maybe everyone expects the Red Cross to be this kind of organization that has prided itself in doing this in the past. So this is the part, how do you reconcile what Israelis, or not even Israelis, people around the world, forget Israelis, Americans, anyone who gives money to the Red Cross, that you can't do a simple thing like demand Hamas that we want to have some sort of medical indication of what the hostages, the 240, we're not even talking, I mean, this is unheard of in history, and this is exactly what the Red Cross is supposed to be doing, and this is why I don't understand why the RCRC is like sort of like, well, we're going to ask. We're going to ask is not enough.
Yes, in fact, there is indeed a misunderstanding on the power that we have as a humanitarian organization.
Please enlighten me.
We appreciate that there are a lot of expectations on us. I want to say we are delivering. As I'm talking to you, I'm seeing with pride the images of my colleagues, and I know each of them very well from working with them. They are right now facilitating the release of these hostages. I think this action speaks by itself. And if the ICRC is not there, nobody else surely will be able to do it. So I hope that
I'm sure I could find a few people, but yes, go ahead.
I hope that the people in Israel can see these images and can also appreciate that whenever we are given the okay, we are there and we are committed, because we are committed to help these hostages and their families. But there is a misunderstanding indeed, which is we are a humanitarian organization. We don't have guns. We don't have bombs. We don't have anything to force ourselves and impose on others the access that we want to have. As a humanitarian organization, we can just ask. We have, with emphasis, asked Hamas publicly and also discreetly for access. So
we very much
can do.
And understand that the video you're looking at right now are the hostages in Red Cross vehicles. Fully understand that. Fully appreciate that. And this is the part that everyone thinks, oh, that's what the Red Cross does. That's what the Red Crescent does in Muslim countries. That's what the Magen Adom in Israel does. But there's a frustration. Understand, there's a frustration around the world. And I'm not talking by Israelis, I'm talking by worldwide. There's a frustration that the ICRC has not turned to Hamas and said, hey, all we're asking to do is to just find out if these people are alive and if they need medical help. That's all we're asking for. We're not here to help. We're not here to negotiate terms, nothing like that. Just give us some sort of indication. And the fact that Hamas has not done that yet indicates a big problem on the international scale. Like, why get money from anyone around the world, billions of dollars? And mind you, I've seen the budget of the ICRC. It's a lot. So why can't you guys do that? So did you understand the concern?
we share your frustration, and indeed, when we call for access, we also expect to be given the access. People who donate to the ICRC have seen that we deliver, and again, the images of today and the images of the coming days, and hopefully the images of days to come, will prove that the ICRC plays as a neutral intermediary role, a critical role to make sure that when the parties reach an agreement, there is someone who can go and deliver. Because we are neutral, we don't take sides, and that's the space that is needed in conflict to make sure that there is one organization with cards who can go through the checkpoints, who can bring together the parties, who can be the convener and facilitate that these human beings, these hostages, are taken to a place that is far away in Gaza, very unsafe for our teams, and bring this to the authorities and to the families. There is one organization who can do that, and this is the ICRC. And we've been doing that for years and years. We are a 160-year organization. We have facilitated release of hostages in Nigeria, in Colombia, in Philippines, in many countries around the world, and we know that we play a critical role because when an agreement is reached, the ICRC is always there. We hope that in the days to come, we'll definitely bring more good news to the people in Israel, to the people around the world. We know that there are also families waiting for their loved ones, hostages, to be released all around the world. I can also tell you, we, the ICRC, have colleagues who are still abducted. We haven't been able to rescue them and to have news on them for years. Do you think we don't try? We try very hard, but we cannot force ourselves in. If we could do that, our colleagues, ICRC colleagues who have been abducted for years would be already with us. So I just want to make sure that there is a clear understanding of what we can do as a humanitarian organization, and that all of you, the Israeli society, you are clear that we remain fully committed to make sure that all these hostages are released and that we can have access to them. It's not in our power, but the minute we have the okay, we will go and we will continue calling discreetly and publicly for the immediate release of all hostages.
Patricia Ray-Gonzalez, I want to thank you for taking the time at least to talk to us about this. And thank you again. If I was a little strong on you, I hope we were just trying to get some answers, and I thank you very much for your time. Patricia Ray-Gonzalez, the head of strategic communications for the International Committee of the Red Cross. She's joining us live from Tel Aviv. Thanks again. In case you're just joining us here at I-24 News Around the World, we want to